When we think about what can damage a child's self esteem, most of us imagine the obvious things: a parent shouting, a child being hit, harsh words, insult, constant criticism. We know that these things can hurt, but there is another kind of damage that is much harder to notice because it doesn't look like damage at all. It happens in ordinary homes, loving homes, homes where parents are doing their best, worrying about their children's future, working hard for them, and trying every single day to give them a better life. It happens in small moments. Parents stepping in too quickly when a child is struggling, or a distracted when the child is telling a story, or a comparison made at the dining table. None of these moments look serious, and yet, when repeated over months and years, they can quietly shape the way a child sees themselves. This is what makes self esteem so interesting. And before we look at these habits, I want to say something important to every parent reading this. If you recognize yourself in any of them, don't immediately turn that recognition into guilt. Honestly, I have done these things too. I have stepped in when I should have stepped back. I have listened while being distracted, not because I don't love my child. I ended up doing these things because I love them. I feel worried about them. I was tired. I genuinely thought I was helping. This is the complicated thing about parenting. So, the first quiet habit is the rescue reflex. Of all the things we do as parents, this one may be the easiest one to justify because it looks like love. Your child is struggling with homework, so you pick up the pencil and show them how to do it. So, the first quiet habit is the rescue reflex. Of all the things we do as parents, this one may be the easiest one to justify because it looks like love. Your child is struggling with homework, so you pick up the pencil and show them how to do it. Or your child is packing their school bag and you notice they are doing it badly. So you quietly repack it. The first quiet habit is the rescue reflex. Of all the things we do as parents, this one is the easiest one to justify because it looks like love. Your child is struggling with homework, so you pick up the pencil and show them how to do it. Your child is packing their school bag and you notice they are doing it badly, so you quietly repack it. Or maybe they are struggling to tie their shoelace, so you bend down and do it for them. Someone asks your child a question, and before your child can answer, you answer for them. Your child has a disagreement with a friend, and your first instinct is to call the other child's parent. So, the intention behind all of this is usually beautiful. We don't want our children to struggle. We don't want them to feel embarrassed. We don't want them to fail. We don't want to see them frustrated. We want to make things easier. We want to protect them. And sometimes, when we are in a hurry, it simply feels faster to do it ourselves. But there is a quiet message that can reach the child when we constantly step in. You can't. I need to do this for you. We may never say those words, but repeated actions can communicate them. And this is where we need to understand something important about self esteem. Self esteem is not built only through praise, it is built through evidence. So, when we tell a child you are capable, we are giving them our belief in them. But when they struggle with something, keep trying, make mistakes, try again, and finally manage it themselves, they gain something much more powerful. They gain evidence. Evidence that says, I can do difficult things, I can keep trying, I can make mistakes and recover. I don't always need someone to save me. That feeling cannot be handed to a child. They have to experience it. And this is why sometimes our biggest act of love is not helping, it is waiting. Waiting while they try, waiting while they make a mistake, waiting while they figure it out, waiting while they discover something about themselves that we already knew was there. This is hard, parents, because watching your child struggle is uncomfortable. When you know exactly how to solve the problem, every part of you wants to step in. But sometimes the struggle isn't a problem that needs to be removed. The struggle is the learning. So instead of saying, give it to me, I will do it, we can say, Bacha, this looks difficult. Take your time. I know you will figure it out. I'm right here if you need me. And then we wait. We let the school bag be imperfectly packed. We let the answer come out awkwardly. We let them struggle with the shoelaces. We let them experience a little frustration. We let them try. Because every time we rescue a child from something they could have handed themselves, we may unintentionally take away an opportunity for them to discover their own capability. And perhaps the question we need to ask ourselves is not, does my child need any help? But does my child actually need my help? Or am I simply uncomfortable watching them struggle? That question can be uncomfortable. But it can also be transformative because sometimes we rescue our children not because they are incapable, but because we cannot tolerate their discomfort. And that is very, very different. Our children will eventually leave our home. They will have difficult teachers, difficult friendships, failed exams, job interviews, disappointments, decision we cannot make for them. We cannot remove every difficult experience from their lives. What we can give them is something much more valuable. The belief that they can face difficulty. So perhaps the goal of parenting isn't to create a life where our children never fall. Perhaps it is to raise children who know what to do after they fall. So, the second quiet habit is half attention. There is another habit that looks completely harmless. Your child comes to you and says, Mama, guess what happened today? You were cooking or replying to a message or checking your phone or answering a work call. You say, Haan, beta, acha, really very nice. But were you actually present? Children notice something that adults often underestimate. They notice where our eyes are. They notice where we are looking at them and when we are simply listening with half a ear. And this matters because what a child is telling us may seem small to an adult while being enormous to them. Imagine a 7-year-old coming home after school. They have spent the entire day waiting to tell you something. Maybe their friend said something funny. Maybe they were left out of a game. Maybe someone complimented them. Maybe something happened that made them feel sad. It may seem insignificant to us, but at that moment, it is their world. They came running to us and say, Mama, guess what? And we responded without looking up. Once it may mean nothing, but what happens when it happens repeatedly? The child doesn't necessarily think Mama is tired. They may simply learn what I have to say is not important enough for Mama to stop and look at me. And this is where small moments become important. Because a child who slowly stops bringing you the small things may eventually stop bringing you the big things. Today it is a drawing, tomorrow it is a disagreement with a friend, and a few years later it is a problem at school, and eventually perhaps it becomes something much more serious. Then when we look at a teenager and wonder, why doesn't my child tell me anything anymore? Sometimes that distance doesn't begin in adolescence. It begins much earlier. It begins with a child who kept coming to us and finding that we were physically present but emotionally somewhere else. I say this without judgment because I have experienced it myself. There have been moments when I have seen my clients talking and saying that, my child has been talking to me, and I've suddenly realized that although I was saying, and acha, I have not really heard a word. And that realization hurts. Because we don't want our children to remember us as the parent who was always too busy to listen. But I also don't think the answer is to tell parents that they must give their children their undivided attention every minute of every day. That's not real life. Parents are people. We work, we cook, we have our own phone calls, we have deadlines, we get tired. Sometimes we simply don't have that emotional bandwidth. So the goal is not to be a perfect. The goal is to communicate our unavailability without communicating their unimportance. So if you're genuinely busy, you can say, Bacha, give me 2 minutes to finish this, and then I want to hear the whole story properly. And then come back, put the phone down, look at your child and listen. Because the 2 minutes of complete attention can sometimes mean more than an entire evening of distracted presence. Your child doesn't need access to you every second. They need to know that when something matters to them, they matter enough for you to look up. So perhaps tonight, instead of asking yourself, did I spend enough time with my child? Ask yourself, when my child spoke to me today, did I really look at them? And if the answer is no, don't punish yourself. Just look up for tomorrow. Sometimes parenting repair is that simple. Now, the third quiet habit is comparison. So, comparison is one of the oldest parenting tools. We use it because we believe it will motivate. We see another child doing something well and think maybe if my child sees this, they will try harder. So we say, Bacha, see how easily your friend finishes her homework. Your cousin is already doing this on her own. Why do you still need help? Look at your classmate. She scored so well. And sometimes the comparison happens between our own children. We tell the younger child, look at your elder brother. He's already doing this on his own. Why can't you do this? Or sometimes we tell the elder one, ki, look at your younger sister. She listens so nicely. Why can't you? The parent doesn't usually mean that you are not good enough. The parent actually means, I know, bacha, you can do better. But children doesn't always hear the intention behind your words. They hear the message underneath them. So the younger child may begin to hear, my brother is better than me. I'm always behind. Something is wrong with me. And if the comparison happens often enough, the child may stop seeing their sibling as someone to learn from and begin seeing them as someone they have to compete with. But there is another side to this. We often forget that comparison affects the child who is being held up as the example too. So imagine repeatedly telling your elder child, you are so responsible. Your younger brother should learn from you. You are the one who understands things. So it sounds like a praise. But slowly the child may begin to believe that being the good one is the part of their identity. So, what happens when they make a mistake? What happens when they struggle? What happens when the younger sibling suddenly does something better? They feel that their position is slipping. So, one child begins to carry the feeling, I am not enough, and the other begins to carry, I have to stay ahead. One is experiencing inadequacy, the other is experiencing pressure. And somewhere in the middle, their relationship can also begin to change. Instead of thinking ki he is my brother, she is my sister, we are on the same team, they start thinking that the child I'm always being compared with. This is the part of comparison we don't often talk about. Comparison can damage not only a child's self-esteem but also the relationship between the children. So a younger child may begin to resent an elder sibling who is constantly held up as a standard. An elder child may begin to feel uncomfortable when the younger siblings succeed because they know another comparison is coming. So, a relationship that could have been built on companionship slowly becomes a scoreboard. And surely we don't want our homes to become places where children compete for the top position. The outside world will give them enough competition. Home should be where the scoreboard disappears. Instead of saying your friend got 95, why can't you? We should be saying last time these questions were difficult for you. So today you solved 4 on your own. That's progress. So the difference is subtle but powerful. The measuring stick moves from another person to the child themselves. And there is another form of comparison that deserves our attention, the positive kind. We say, you are the smart one, she is the responsible one, he is the naughty one. She is the quiet one. We think we are simply describing our children, but children often turn our description into identities. If I am the smart one, what happens when I fail? If I am the responsible one, am I allowed to make mistakes? If my sibling is the difficult one, will they eventually start believing that too? Our children don't need to occupy different roles in order to feel special. They can have different strengths without one strength becoming more valuable than another. Our child may be academically strong, another may be creative, one may be confident, another may be deeply observant, one may be independent, another may need more reassurance. They don't have to completely be worthy of all the qualities. Perhaps one of the most important things we can teach sibling is this. Your sibling's success does not make you smaller, and your success does not make your sibling smaller. They are not rivals. They are two different human beings growing at two different speeds, and they deserve to know that they are on the same team. Now, what do we do if we have already done all three? At this point, you may be thinking, I have done all this. Maybe you have compared your child. Maybe you have looked at your phone while your child was talking. Maybe you have stepped in too quickly. Maybe as you are reading this, you're remembering a particular moment. If that is happening, I want you to pause. Not because you have failed, but because you have noticed. And noticing is where change begins. Parenting isn't about getting every moment right. It is about becoming more aware of the moments that matter. So we don't need to become a completely different parent overnight. We simply need to make some small choices. And there is this one tiny habit I want you to try. At bedtime, sit beside your child and say, I noticed something about you today. Then tell them what you noticed. Not their marks, not their appearance, not whether they were better than someone else. Something about who they are. Bacha, I noticed how patient you were with your little cousin today. Bacha, I noticed that you tried that question again even after getting it wrong. Or, Bacha, I noticed that you told me the truth even though you were scared I might get upset. Bacha, I noticed that you helped your friend. I noticed that you did not give up. Think about what that sentence communicates. I notice says that I see you. I don't see just your performance. I don't see just your behavior. I don't see just your achievements. I see you. And when we notice their efforts without comparing it to someone else, we are telling them that you don't have to compete to be worthy. And when we notice their courage, patience, honesty, and resilience, we give them evidence of who they are becoming. So try it for 30 nights. One sentence, 15 seconds. You may not see a dramatic transformation, but perhaps your child will begin to share one more story. Perhaps they will attempt something without immediately asking you to do it. Perhaps they will slowly stop asking, am I better than her? And start saying, look, mama, what I did. And that shift is everything. So, parents, we have misunderstood self esteem for a long time. We sometimes think a confident child is the child who believes they are the best, the smartest, the prettiest, the most talented. But that is not real confidence. Real confidence doesn't say I am better than everyone else. It says I don't have to be better than everyone else to know that I am enough. It says, I can make a mistake and still respect myself. I can see someone succeed without feeling threatened. I can struggle without believing I am incapable. I can ask for help without feeling weak. I can fail and try again. And most importantly, I know I am loved even when I'm not performing perfectly. This is the kind of self esteem we want to build in our children. And the beautiful thing is that we don't build it through one grand parenting moment. We build it in ordinary moments. When we don't rescue, when we look up, when we step back, when we let them try, when we don't compare, when we notice, when we say, I see you. Because your child doesn't need a perfect parent, as I always say, they need a parent who is willing to notice, learn, and repair. And perhaps the simplest gift we can give them is this: when they look towards us, we look back.